productive purposes after they leave the facility. As I mentioned, in Berkeley, the urban ore has staff that's officially approved by the city to scavenge off of the floor of the transfer station and to help residents and businesses offload their stuff from their trucks. And the reason that's so important is because the offloading is a time when 90% of the wasting occurs. When they put the perfectly good stuff and throw it off their trucks onto the ground and smash it up. So if you're helping them with good customer service, friendly people, helping people out, they all think it's just part of the service, when what you're really doing is protecting the value of the products and recovering them at the highest and best use. And the resource recovery parks are designed for maximum diversion from the South Hall stream of people bringing their own stuff there. Some resource recovery parks go to the next step of including the processing activities, including the manufacturing activities, including the sale of materials. There's all different types of resource recovery parks, and we'll be talking about them in a few minutes. There's also the concept of eco-parks, which resource recovery parks is actually a subset of. Eco-parks derive from the success of Kalundborg in Denmark, where over a 30-year period, they developed a system where the outputs from one industry became the inputs for another industry. And they kept working that type of model that we talked about earlier that is reminiscent of the Ziri model of putting that all together. And it evolved over time, over a long period of time, to become this whole integrated ecosystem that was a very efficient way of doing business. And that type of...
What's the name of that place?
Kalundborg, Kalundborg, Denmark.
Is that when it started with like a pharmaceutical that had a firm that had really high temperatures?
I don't know. Okay. But it is the model of eco-parks. Environmental parks is a subset of eco-parks, which is the co-locating of environmental services. A number of places have done this where they have wastewater treatment, solid waste, sometimes water utilities, sometimes electric utilities, all in the same vicinity. So that's a co-locating of environmental services. It was interesting, I was invited to Perth Amboy in Australia, didn't go, but to talk about resource recovery parks because they were feeling pressure of encroachment on their wastewater treatment plant from development. And what they wanted to do was protect themselves from encroachment by having a ring of industry around them that was using the land productively, but protecting them from being squeezed out by homeowners that would come in and complain about the smell. So there's different types of eco-parks. There's the Ziri approach we've talked about earlier. And some of the benefits we've talked about: drop-and-shop convenience. People bring all their stuff, and then they can pick stuff up for a bargain or for free. The free may be, a lot of places do, particularly for household hazardous waste, swap and shop or swap centers or shelf where you have household hazardous waste that have not been opened, or in some places even open stuff. They put on the shelf and people can just take it for free when they go there. So that drop-and-shop convenience adds a whole dynamic. Louise does that when she goes to her recycling and waste bins on her multifamily complex. Decreasing the waste fees. We talked about before that, highlighting that it's not just a land use design, it's also an economic system of having discounts. So you're paying less money for reuse, recycling, composting than you are for wasting. You may pay some money for reuse, recycling, composting or not, depending on your market economics in the area. But the key is making sure that the fees to pay for wasting your stuff are the highest fees, and people have to pay more and have to bypass all these opportunities for recycling that we just talked about at San Luis Obispo in order to waste it and pay the piper, pay a premium for that. It's, the park's the value to the public is recovering value. There's wonderful stuff that they can bring home and buying other items at a discount. For the businesses in a resource recovery park, one of the huge efficiencies is all these savings, just like in a shopping mall. The big anchor tenants market and get traffic coming to the shopping mall that enable a lot of other small little businesses with niche markets that don't have the marketing budget to attract those people to the place in order to do stuff. So for the Resource Recovery Park, it's the same idea. The marketing on a shared basis, oftentimes an anchor tenant for a Resource Recovery Park will be a big MRF, a material recovery facility, and a big composting facility, and maybe a C&D recycling facility. But then you can do the reuse center because it's attracting enough people that are bringing stuff along. You can add in deconstruction services with the reuse center. You can do the art from scrap, innovative students designing stuff out of scrap materials to sell in downtown Santa Fe for a premium. And all, it goes on and on and on, limited only by your creativity.
Especially the, let us not forget the accelerator component.
And let us not forget, as one of the services can be an accelerator, incubator, and many of the Resource Recovery Park designs, we've included that concept. We have a couple of samples here of feasibility studies that were done in England, Waveney, UK, and Del Norte, highlighting the economics of these. One of the things that we've done by our team, the Del Norte, one of the fundamental ideas we came up with here that really would apply to you guys is their landfill was closing in Del Norte, and they were facing a major increase in landfill fees from $50 to potentially $75 or $100 a ton. And in our feasibility study, we assumed $75 a ton was going to be the cost for transfer and landfill somewhere else. Turns out it ended up being $110 to transfer and dispose elsewhere in Oregon. What we recommended as a business model that was not adopted by Del Norte County, but you can, is that we suggested when you contract for a contractor for the publicly owned site for the transfer station, that you require in that contract that the transfer station operator reuse, recycle, or compost anything that costs less than transfer and disposal. Just a policy. And if they had done that, then the operator could then, operating under that contract, pay someone $30, $40, $50 a ton and still make $25, $30, or $40 a ton themselves if they're taking in rates that were set by the county at $75 or $110 a ton in order to accomplish the transfer activity. That cash then enables incubators to attract businesses that couldn't make it on their own, and at least for startup, get them going, and then spin them off to have facilities elsewhere.